Captain Ethan Cross had seen his share of derelicts, broken and lifeless, drifting in the void. But nothing compared to this. The Titan was immense. It stretched endlessly before him, its dark, jagged hull obscured by the swirling dust of the asteroid field. After days of navigating through ancient, debris-filled space, his scavenger crew had come across the wreck, an impossibility floating in the forgotten reaches of the galaxy. But they had no idea what they were truly looking at. "Looks dead to me," growled Terk, the ship's engineer, his voice crackling over the comms. "No power, no heat signatures, just an old hunk of metal." Ethan frowned, his hand resting lightly on the control panel of the Vanguard, their much smaller vessel. The readouts confirmed Terk's assessment. No activity, no energy spikes, nothing to suggest life. But something didn't sit right. "Captain," Samir's voice, the youngest of their crew, buzzed over the line. He was positioned at the rear, keeping watch. "You ever see a ship this big just floating out here? This sector's supposed to be barren." Ethan's jaw tightened. Barren wasn't the right word. This was the rift, a forgotten sector of space littered with the remains of long-lost battles. Old records spoke of massive fleets clashing here, but most of it had been wiped from history. The galaxy had moved on. Only scavengers and smugglers ventured this far out. "No," Ethan finally responded. "Not like this." The Titan loomed ahead, its silhouette like a ghostly mountain. It dwarfed their ship in every way. He could see faint scarring along the hull, deep gouges where plasma fire had cut through metal centuries ago. But even after what looked like unimaginable damage, the ship remained intact. "What the hell is it?" Terk's voice cut through again. "Bring us closer," Ethan ordered. There was silence as the Vanguard inched forward, cutting through the thin dust cloud. Ethan's heart pounded. He couldn't shake the feeling that they had stumbled onto something far bigger than they could handle. But scavengers didn't walk away from potential salvage without a reason. And this was a find of a lifetime. Even if they could scrap just a portion of the Titan, it would set them up for years. "Prepare to board," Ethan said after a pause. "We're going in." Terk grunted, already suiting up. Samir's hesitation was more noticeable. "We sure about this, Cap? I mean, a ship this size, it's gotta belong to someone." Ethan smiled grimly. "If it belongs to anyone, they're long dead. This ship's been out here for centuries." He powered down the Vanguard's engines, bringing the smaller vessel to a steady drift alongside the massive hulk. His fingers hovered over the navigation display, then tapped an access point along the Titan's hull. "Life support's offline," Terk grumbled, checking his suit systems. "This is going to be a cold one." The airlock hissed as it opened, exposing them to the vacuum of space. Ethan led the way, his suit's magnetic boots locking onto the hull as they moved toward the airlock of the Titan. Up close, the scale of the ship was even more overwhelming. The entrance to the airlock was large enough to swallow their entire scavenger ship. "Doesn't make sense," Terk muttered. "How does a ship this big just disappear? We've heard of the old battles, sure, but something this size." Ethan nodded, but kept his focus. This was no ordinary ship. The design was vaguely familiar, but alien in a way. He couldn't place it. "Samir, keep the Vanguard ready for an emergency evac," Ethan ordered as they approached the manual override panel of the airlock. His gloved hand tapped the worn surface, sending sparks flying. The airlock creaked and groaned before finally giving in, sliding open with an agonizing slowness. Cold, stale air rushed out into the vacuum, and for a moment there was only silence. Inside, the ship was dark. There were no lights, no hum of active machinery. The place felt abandoned. Ethan clicked on his helmet's flashlight, the beam cutting through the shadows to reveal a corridor that stretched into the distance. The walls were lined with conduits and scorched panels, as if the ship had been through one hell of a fight. Still, there was no sign of life, nothing but the eerie silence. "Let's move," Ethan said, stepping inside. The rest of the crew followed, their lights adding to the sparse light. It was colder than he expected. Colder than it should be, even for a derelict. Tarek was muttering to himself as he inspected the walls, his tools buzzing lightly. "Something's wrong here," the engineer said, frowning. "Even a dead ship this old should have some residual power. We should be picking up more than this." Ethan agreed, but kept moving forward. His instincts screamed that they shouldn't be here, that whatever had left the Titan adrift in this forgotten corner of the galaxy wasn't something they wanted to uncover. But at the same time, the scavenger in him couldn't resist. This ship, dead or not, was worth a fortune. And yet, something about the name, etched in ancient human script along the corridor wall, made his breath catch. Titan. It was familiar, too familiar. His mind raced through old tales, whispered legends of humanity's golden age. The Titan, if he remembered correctly, was humanity's most powerful battleship. But that was impossible. It was lost over 300 years ago, during the Great War. He turned to Tarek, his voice low. "I think this is it. The Titan. The ship that vanished." Tarek stopped in his tracks, his eyes wide. "You mean, the Titan? The battleship? But that's a myth." Ethan's pulse quickened. "Not a myth. It's real. We're standing inside it." Before anyone could respond, the ship trembled beneath their feet. Ethan's flashlight flickered, and a low, ominous hum echoed through the corridor. "What was that?" Samir's voice crackled in their comms, his panic obvious. Ethan swallowed hard. Something just woke up. Ethan's breath hitched as the deep hum reverberated through the Titan's ancient hull. It started low, barely noticeable at first, but grew steadily until the floor beneath their feet vibrated with barely contained power. It was the unmistakable sound of life returning to a machine that had been dead for centuries. "What the hell did we do?" Tarek muttered, eyes wide behind his visor. His usual gruff demeanor was replaced with a tension Ethan hadn't seen before. Ethan's instincts kicked in. "Everyone, hold position. Samir, get the Vanguard ready for an immediate evac. If this thing's coming back online, we don't know what systems are going to activate." "Copy that, Captain," Samir responded, though his voice carried a nervous edge. "I've got her primed for launch if you need a quick exit." The lights flickered again, this time staying on. Dim, sputtering bulbs light the corridor, casting long shadows along the walls. Ethan scanned the length of the hallway, but there was no immediate danger. Yet, "We keep moving," he said, motioning forward. "We need to get to the command center. If this ship is waking up, someone needs to take control. Fast." Tarek grumbled under his breath, but followed, his hand resting on the plasma cutter strapped to his side. Ethan could hear his friend's footsteps quicken, mirroring his own rising tension. The ship, once deathly silent, was now alive with subtle sounds, the groan of metal under stress, the distant hiss of air systems rebooting, and the eerie hum that had settled into the background like an ominous pulse. The corridor opened into a massive atrium, an expansive space that stretched far above their heads. The walls were lined with consoles, each one darkened with age, covered in a thin layer of dust. In the center, a massive viewing screen dominated the room, shattered in places, but still intact enough to display faint static. "This is the command center," Ethan said, more to himself than the others. His eyes traced the lines of consoles, recognizing their design despite the alien feel. They were human ancient, but unmistakably human. "Looks like something out of the history books," Tarek muttered, tapping one of the consoles with his gloved hand. "I don't get it. If this is the Titan, where the hell is the crew? Shouldn't there be bodies or something?" Ethan didn't have an answer. The Titan had vanished without a trace during the final days of the Great War. No one had ever found its remains, and the fate of its crew had been a mystery for over 300 years. Now, standing in the heart of the most powerful warship humanity had ever built, the reality of that mystery weighed heavily on him. He approached the central console, brushing aside the dust. His fingers danced over the control panel, searching for anything that still worked. Lights blinked to life as he powered it up, the screen before him flickering from static to a more recognizable interface. "Whoa," Tarek said, leaning over his shoulder. You really think we can get this thing running again? Ethan's focus narrowed as he sifted through the data. The ship was a maze of systems, many of which were either damaged or offline. But there was enough functional to make him believe the Titan still had some fight left in her. We don't need to get everything up and running, just enough to get us back in control. But as he dug deeper into the systems, something strange caught his eye. That's not right, he whispered. Terk noticed the change in his tone. What is it? AI core, Ethan said, pointing to a blinking icon on the display. It's still operational. Terk frowned. You mean this ship's been running without a crew for centuries? Ethan's pulse quickened. The Titan wasn't just some hunk of metal drifting in space. It had been waiting, and now that they had boarded, it was waking up. Without warning, the console in front of them flickered violently, and the entire room plunged into darkness once more. Ethan's hand shot to his sidearm, his other hand instinctively reaching for the emergency light on his wrist. Terk cursed. What now? The hum they had heard earlier grew louder, this time accompanied by a sharp, rhythmic pulse. Lights flared back to life, brighter than before, light every corner of the command center. And then, a voice calm, cold, and unmistakably artificial spoke. Command authority recognized. Reinitializing primary systems. Stand by. Ethan froze, his mind racing. The AI had activated, and if the ship's AI was online, that meant they were no longer alone on this ship. What's your name? Ethan asked, his voice steady but cautious. He needed to establish communication with the AI, fast. There was a brief pause before the voice responded. This vessel is the UN's Titan. Command systems are now operational. You are unauthorized personnel. Terk's grip tightened on his plasma cutter. What does that mean? Is it going to shoot us? Ethan raised a hand, trying to keep everyone calm. We need to get authorization. The AI won't let us take control without it. Captain, Samir's voice came through the comms, panic clear now. We've got company out here. Sensors are picking up multiple signatures. They're moving fast. Ethan swore under his breath. The Titan's reactivation had drawn attention, and if there were ships out there, it could only mean one thing: aliens. Probably the Zarjal, the race responsible for the Titan's original downfall. Hold your position, Samir, Ethan ordered. Don't engage unless they make a move. We've got minutes, maybe less, Samir warned. Damn it, Ethan muttered, turning back to the console. He had to think fast. The AI wasn't just any old system, it was a relic from humanity's past, a time when AI had been far more sophisticated and dangerous than what existed now. And right now, it wasn't on their side. AI, Ethan said, his voice firm. This is Captain Ethan Cross of the human scavenger vessel Vanguard. We request emergency reactivation of command systems under the Human Preservation Protocol. There was another pause, longer this time. Ethan held his breath. The Human Preservation Protocol had been a last-ditch effort implemented during the final days of the Great War, a way for any surviving human to take control of a critical asset if all else failed. Protocol acknowledged, the AI finally responded. Command transfer in progress. Ethan exhaled, but it was only a partial relief. The AI was giving them access, but they were far from safe. The alien ships were closing in, and he had no idea how long it would take for the Titan to be battle-ready. We need weapons online, Terk said, his voice grim. We're not going to survive this without them. Ethan nodded, his hands moving swiftly across the console. Systems were coming online, one by one, but the ship's weaponry was still in low-power mode. It would take time they didn't have. Weapons are offline for now, Ethan said, but if the AI can rearm us... Too late, Samir's panicked voice cut through. They're here. The entire ship shook as a barrage of plasma fire slammed into the Titan's hull. Ethan braced himself against the console, teeth gritted, as the massive warship groaned under the impact. Dust rained down from the ceiling, and warning lights flashed red across the command center. Shields are still offline, Tarek shouted over the comms. "We're sitting ducks." Ethan's fingers flew across the controls. Come on, come on. The ship's systems were reawakening, but they were far from full capacity. He needed to buy them time. "Samir, evasive maneuvers," Ethan barked into the comms. "Keep the Vanguard out of their line of fire." "I'm trying, Captain, but they're not targeting us, they're focusing everything on the Titan." That wasn't a surprise. The Vanguard was a small scavenger ship barely armed, barely armored. The Zarjal, the alien fleet that had arrived, knew the real threat was the battleship. Ethan cursed under his breath. The Zarjal were ruthless, one of the most feared species in the galaxy. They had been the primary enemies of humanity during the Great War, brutal, cunning, and relentless in their pursuit of conquest. And now, after all these centuries, they had returned to finish what they started. The Eye's voice broke through the chaos, cold and steady. "Weapon systems at 30% capacity. Reinitializing targeting matrix." 30%? Tarek repeated, eyes wide. "That's not enough to scratch them." Ethan's mind raced. The Titan was still waking up, and they were already in the middle of a fight. The Zarjal knew they had limited time to destroy the ship before it fully powered up. If they didn't act soon, it would be over before it began. "AI," Ethan said, forcing calm into his voice. "What's the status of our defensive capabilities?" "Shields offline. Weapons at 30% capacity. Hull integrity at 65%. He swallowed. Those numbers weren't good. The Titan had taken a beating during the Great War, and it hadn't recovered during its long slumber. They were outgunned, outnumbered, and severely underprepared. But the Titan was still the most advanced warship humanity had ever built. Even at 30%, it was formidable if they could just bring its systems back online in time. "Tarek, focus on getting the weapons fully operational," Ethan ordered. "I'll handle the AI." Tarek nodded and sprinted toward a nearby access panel, muttering curses under his breath. His tools sparked to life as he ripped into the console, trying to reroute power to the weapon systems. Ethan turned back to the main console, his mind racing. The Zarjal ships were circling the Titan like predators, bombarding the warship with plasma fire. He could feel the pressure mounting, the seconds ticking away. "AI," Ethan said, his voice steady despite the fear creeping into his chest. "Is there a way to activate emergency defenses manually?" The AI hesitated, and for a moment, Ethan wondered if the ancient system was malfunctioning. But then it responded. "Manual activation of emergency defense systems requires authorization from a higher command rank." Ethan frowned. "I'm the highest ranking officer on this ship." "Incorrect. Higher ranking officers detected within range." Ethan's blood ran cold. "What do you mean, detected? There's no one else on this ship." "Command crew status, cryostasis." Ethan's breath caught. He glanced at Tarek, who was still working frantically on the weapon systems. "The crew is alive." "Affirmative. Command crew currently in cryogenic suspension." This changed everything. The Titan's original crew, the legends of the Great War, were still aboard, frozen in time. If he could revive them, they could retake control of the ship and turn the tide of battle. But cryostasis wasn't a simple system to reboot. It would take time, more time than they had. "Can you override the cryostasis protocols?" Ethan asked. "Cryostasis override requires command authority from Admiral Marcus Reyes," the AI replied. Admiral Marcus Reyes. Ethan had heard the name in history lessons as a child, one of humanity's greatest military leaders, a legend of the Great War. The man who had commanded the Titan during its last stand. But that wasn't going to help them now. Reyes was frozen in cryosleep, and they had no way of reviving him in time. "Damn it," Ethan muttered. "AI, I need full command authority now." "Command authority can only be transferred to the highest ranking officer present," the AI stated flatly. Ethan's jaw clenched. "Then make me the highest ranking officer." The AI paused, processing his request. "Authorization granted. Captain Ethan Cross is now designated acting commander of the UN's Titan. The moment the words left the eye's voice, a rush of information flooded the console in front of Ethan. Tactical displays, system diagnostics, weapon status reports, all of it flashed across the screen, giving him full access to the ship's remaining capabilities. "Terk, I've got command," Ethan shouted, his fingers dancing across the console. "We're bringing the guns online." Terk let out a laugh of disbelief. "About time." Ethan's hands moved quickly, activating what remained of the Titan's weapons. The ship shuddered as the massive plasma cannons along its hull powered up, their low hum vibrating through the deck. "AI, target the nearest Zarjul ship," Ethan ordered. Target locked. Ethan gripped the console, his heart pounding. "Fire!" The Titan roared to life. Plasma bolts shot out from its cannons, cutting through the darkness of space like fiery spears. The Zarjul ships, fast and agile, darted to avoid the barrage, but they weren't fast enough. One of the smaller alien craft took a direct hit, its shields flickering out before it erupted in a ball of fire and debris. The crew let out a collective cheer as the alien ship was destroyed. "Hell yeah," Terk shouted, slamming his fist against the console. "That's more like it." Ethan didn't share in the victory just yet. There were still more Zarjul ships out there, and the Titan was far from fully operational. He could see on the tactical display that the alien fleet was regrouping, likely planning their next move. "AI, bring the rest of the weapons online," Ethan said. "We need everything we've got." Reinitializing additional systems. Estimated time to full weapon capacity, 10 minutes. 10 minutes? Terk groaned. "We don't have 10 minutes. Ethan knew he was right. The Zarjul wouldn't give them that kind of time. But they had to hold out. If they could keep the Titan in the fight long enough for the weapons to come fully online, they might stand a chance. Suddenly, Samir's voice came through the comms, frantic. "Captain, more ships inbound. It's a full fleet, they're bringing reinforcements." Ethan's heart sank. The tactical display confirmed Samir's warning. More Zarjul ships were warping into the system, their sleek, menacing forms filling the void. "We're outnumbered, Captain," Samir said, panic lacing his words. "We can't win this." Ethan's mind raced, weighing their options. They couldn't outrun the Zarjul fleet, not with the Titan in its current state, and surrender wasn't an option. These aliens didn't take prisoners. He looked at the tactical display, then at Terk, who was still working desperately to reroute power to the weapons. They had one chance. One desperate, reckless chance. "AI," Ethan said, his voice calm despite the chaos around him. "Prepare the jump drive." Terk's head snapped up, eyes wide. "Are you crazy? We don't even know if the jump drive still works." "It's a risk we have to take," Ethan replied. "If we stay here, we're dead." The eye's voice chimed in. "Jump drive operational at 35% capacity. Destination coordinates required." Ethan didn't hesitate. "Set coordinates for the edge of the Sol system." Terk gaped at him. "You're taking us back to Earth?" Ethan's expression hardened. "If the Zarjul want to finish what they started, we're going to need all the help we can get, and humanity needs to know the Titan is back." The air in the command center felt thick with tension as the Titan systems whirred, processing Ethan's jump coordinates. The massive alien fleet looming on the tactical display seemed to tighten around them, a web of Zarjul warships preparing for their kill. They didn't have much time. "Captain," Terk's voice was low, but clear. "You sure about this? If the jump drive fails, we're done for." Ethan stared at the glowing display, the enemy ships closing in on all sides. "We don't have a choice. If we stay, we'll die here anyway." The Zarjul reinforcements had arrived in force, and even with the Titan awakening, they couldn't take on an entire fleet, not without the ship fully operational. And the clock was ticking. If they couldn't jump soon, they'd be overwhelmed in minutes. Samir's voice crackled through the comms from the Vanguard. "Captain, we're being hailed by the Zarjul. They're demanding our surrender." Ethan let out a bitter laugh. Surrender, huh? They didn't offer that to humanity the first time. Tarek clenched his jaw, his hands still working to stabilize the power grid. What do they want with a Titan anyway? After all this time, why come back for a ship they think they destroyed centuries ago? Ethan's mind raced as the answer began to piece itself together. The Titan wasn't just a warship, it had been humanity's ultimate weapon, a symbol of defiance and strength. In the Great War, the Zarjal had been terrified of it, its mere presence turning the tide in battles, but it was more than that. The Titan had carried a secret, something humanity had kept hidden even from their own soldiers. It hit him like a plasma bolt to the chest. The Titan was more than a battleship, Ethan muttered, barely above a whisper. It was a fortress. The AI isn't just managing the ship's systems, it's protecting something. Tarek's brow furrowed. What do you mean, protecting something? Ethan's gaze hardened. The Titan was designed to hold something, a weapon, a technology, something the Zarjal fear enough to send their entire fleet after us. They don't just want to destroy the ship. They're after whatever it's guarding. Tarek swore under his breath. We're sitting on a bomb, aren't we? Not a bomb, Ethan corrected. A secret. The AI's voice interrupted their conversation. Jump drive is operational, ready for immediate activation. Ethan's pulse quickened. The jump drive was ready, but they still didn't know what the Titan was hiding. Whatever it was powerful enough to attract an entire alien armada, and it wasn't just the Zarjal. They'd already seen how other factions were lurking, watching, waiting. They had no time to investigate, no time to dig deeper into the mysteries of the ship. But if they could make the jump, if they could get back to the Sol system, maybe there would be time to figure it all out. Maybe? Samir, Ethan said, his voice firm over the comms. We're preparing to jump. Stay close to us. We're going back to Earth. Samir's voice came back, tense but resolute. Understood, Captain. We'll follow your lead. Ethan turned to Tarek. Brace for jump. Tarek nodded grimly, strapping himself into his station. The hum of the ship's engines grew louder, the vibrations intensifying as the Titan prepared to tear through space. AI, engage jump drive, Ethan ordered, his voice steady. The AI's response was immediate. Jump drive engaged. The world outside the view screen warped, stretching and bending as space itself seemed to ripple around them. The Zarjal fleet, still closing in, vanished into a blur of stars and darkness. For a moment, there was only the sound of the Titan's engines and the eerie silence of hyperspace. Then, with a gut-wrenching lurch, they were through. The stars snapped back into place, and the Titan emerged on the edge of the Sol system, the distant glow of Earth's sun just barely visible on the horizon. The ship's systems hummed as they adjusted to the new coordinates, and Ethan let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. We made it, Tarek said, disbelief and relief mixing in his voice. Ethan nodded, though his mind was still racing. They had escaped the Zarjal fleet, but the battle wasn't over. The Titan's secret was still buried somewhere in its core, and now that they were back in the Sol system, it was only a matter of time before Earth's forces, or worse, the Zarjal, came for them again. Captain, Samir's voice crackled through the comms. I don't think we're alone. Ethan's heart sank. He pulled up the ship's sensors and saw it immediately. A small fleet of ships was already waiting for them on the edge of the system. Earth's fleet? No. These ships were different, sleek, angular, and bristling with weaponry. They're not human, Tarek muttered, staring at the display. No, Ethan agreed, his voice tense. There's something else. Before he could say another word, a new voice crackled over the comms, cold, alien, and laced with malice. Human vessel, you are in possession of technology that does not belong to you. Surrender the Titan, and you will be spared. Ethan's grip tightened on the console. Whoever they weren't Zarjal, but they clearly knew about the Titan. And if they wanted the ship, they must have known about its secret too. Captain, what do we do? Tarek asked, his voice low. Ethan's mind raced. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and still limping from their last encounter. But they couldn't afford to lose the Titan, not now, not when they were so close to uncovering its secrets. "We fight," Ethan said, his voice hard as steel. "We fight for Earth, for humanity." Tarek looked at him, eyes wide with both fear and determination. "But Captain, we don't even know what we're up against." Ethan's jaw clenched. "We've been fighting the unknown since the Great War. This is no different." The alien ships were moving now, closing in on the Titan with chilling precision. The tactical display lit up with warnings as their targeting systems locked onto the battleship. "Weapons online?" Ethan asked, his voice steady. Tarek nodded, though his expression was grim. "At 50%, it's all we've got. Then we make it count." The ship shuddered as the first barrage of fire slammed into their shields. Sparks flew from the consoles, and warning sirens blared throughout the command center. But Ethan didn't flinch. His hands moved across the controls with practiced ease, directing the ship's firepower toward the approaching enemy fleet. "AI, target their lead ship," Ethan ordered. "Target locked." The Titan's plasma cannons roared to life, sending streaks of fire across the void. The alien ships darted and weaved, but the Titan was relentless. Its plasma bolts tore through the blackness of space, slamming into the lead alien vessel. The ship's shields flickered, then failed, and moments later, it erupted in a brilliant explosion. The alien fleet hesitated, but only for a moment. Then they resumed their attack, firing in unison. Plasma bolts and energy beams rained down on the Titan, shaking the warship to its core. "We can't take much more of this," Tarek shouted, his voice barely audible over the noise. Ethan's mind raced. They couldn't win a prolonged battle like this. The Titan was still too damaged, too vulnerable. But they had one advantage: the element of surprise. "AI," Ethan said, his voice steady despite the chaos. "What's the status of our experimental weapon systems?" There was a brief pause as the AI processed the request. "Experimental weaponry is offline. Minimal power available for activation." Ethan frowned. "Minimal power? What does that mean?" "Activation of experimental weaponry at current power levels may result in system failure or catastrophic damage to the Titan." Tarek's head whipped around. "You can't be serious. You're thinking of using it." Ethan met his gaze, his expression hard. "If we don't, we're dead anyway." The ship shook again as another barrage slammed into them, and Ethan made his decision. "AI, prepare to activate the experimental weapons. We're going all in." Tarek stared at him in disbelief but didn't argue. He knew as well as Ethan did that they were out of options. "Experimental weaponry charged," the AI confirmed. "Ready to fire on your command." Ethan's hands tightened around the controls. "Do it." The Titan lurched as the experimental weapons activated, their energy humming through the ship's systems. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze: the alien ships, the stars, the void itself, before a blinding flash of light erupted from the Titan's hull. The experimental weapon fired, sending a pulse of pure energy rippling through space. The alien fleet didn't have time to react. The pulse hit them like a tidal wave, their ships buckling and crumbling under the sheer force. One by one, the alien vessels exploded, their shattered remains drifting into the void. Ethan watched the tactical display, his breath coming in shallow gasps. They had done it. Against all odds, they had won. But the Titan was barely holding together. Systems were failing, alarms were blaring, and the ship was on the verge of collapse. We did it," Tarek said, his voice filled with disbelief. Ethan nodded, though his thoughts were elsewhere. They had survived this battle, but there were still so many questions. What was the Titan really hiding? What was this mysterious weapon? And why had so many different factions come for it? As the ship limped toward Earth, Ethan knew one thing for certain: their fight wasn't over. The secrets of the Titan were still buried deep, and whatever they were, they had the power to change the fate of humanity. The Titan drifted through the void of space, battered but not broken. The remnants of the alien fleet were nothing more than smoldering debris, a testament to the raw power of the ancient human battleship. But despite their victory, there was no relief in the command center. The air felt charged with an unspoken dread. "Damage report," Ethan ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. Tarek's fingers flew over his console. "Shields are down to 5%. Hull integrity is critical. We've lost most of our weapon systems, and the experimental weapon. Well, it drained us more than we expected. We're limping, Captain." Ethan's mind whirled as he absorbed the information. The Titan had survived the battle, but just barely. Another encounter like that, and they wouldn't make it. Worse, they had no idea how many more alien fleets might be out there, hunting for them. "AI, are we picking up any other signals?" Ethan asked, hoping for a moment to catch their breath. The AI's voice came through, calm as ever. No other vessels detected within immediate range. However, the pulse generated by the experimental weapon may have attracted attention. Long-range sensors indicate unusual activity at the edge of the Sol system. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Unusual activity. There are faint readings of energy signatures consistent with long-range scans or cloaked vessels. I cannot confirm, but it is likely we are being monitored. "Great," Tarek muttered under his breath. "Just what we need. More eyes on us." Ethan glanced at the tactical display, then turned to Tarek. "We can't stay here. If we're being watched, they'll send reinforcements. We need to get back to Earth, now." Tarek hesitated, rubbing the back of his neck. "That's the thing, Captain. The jump drive's fried. We're not going anywhere fast." Ethan cursed under his breath. They were stranded, vulnerable, and far too close to enemy territory for comfort. But they still had the Titan, and they still had a mission to complete. "What about the Vanguard?" Ethan asked, turning toward the comms. Samir's voice crackled through the speakers. "We took a hit, but we're holding together. We can make it back to Earth under normal propulsion, but it'll take time." Time. That was the one thing they didn't have. Ethan paced the command center, his mind racing for solutions. They had to protect the Titan, not just for their own survival, but for the secret it held. Whatever the ship was hiding, it was enough to send the Zarjal and whoever these new enemies were into a frenzy. And if it fell into the wrong hands, humanity could be facing extinction. "We need to figure out what's inside this ship," Ethan said, stopping mid-step. "There has to be more to it than just its weapons." Tarek shot him a look. "Are you suggesting we dig around the Titan's core systems? You saw what happened when we tried to access classified files earlier. The AI almost fried the whole ship." Ethan nodded. "I know, but we're running out of options. The Titan holds the key to everything. If we don't figure out what it's protecting, we won't stand a chance when the next wave of enemies comes for us." Samir's voice broke in over the comms. "Captain, I'm picking up something odd on my sensors. It looks like, I don't know, some kind of signal coming from the Titan. It's faint, but it's definitely there." Ethan's brow furrowed. "A signal? From the Titan? AI, can you identify the source?" The AI's response was swift. "The signal appears to be originating from a restricted section of the ship's lower decks. I am unable to provide further information without higher clearance." Ethan exchanged a look with Tarek. "Looks like we're going for a walk." The lower decks of the Titan were a labyrinth of corridors and maintenance tunnels, most of which hadn't been touched in centuries. The air was stale, and the dim emergency lighting cast long, eerie shadows across the walls. Ethan and Tarek moved cautiously, their boots echoing in the hollow silence. "I don't like this," Tarek muttered, keeping his sidearm close. "If the AI's been locking us out of these areas, there's a reason." Ethan nodded, but kept moving. He didn't like it either, but they needed answers. The Titan's secret was buried somewhere down here, and he intended to find it. As they descended deeper into the ship, the signal grew stronger, pulsing like a heartbeat in the darkness. It was faint, almost like a whisper, but unmistakable. Whatever it was calling to them. Finally, they reached a set of heavy blast doors, sealed tight and covered in ancient warning signs. The air was thick with tension as Ethan approached the control panel, his fingers hovering over the keypad. "Here goes nothing," he muttered. The door hissed open with a groan of protest, revealing a dark chamber beyond. The room was massive, filled with strange machinery and consoles that looked far older than anything else on the ship. In the center of the room stood a tall, sleek structure, a pod of some kind, pulsing with the same energy signature they had been following. Tarek took a step forward, his eyes wide. "What the hell is that?" Ethan moved closer, his heart pounding in his chest. The pod was unlike anything he had ever seen before. It was covered in intricate markings, alien symbols that seemed to shimmer and shift in the low light. And as he approached, he felt a strange sense of recognition, like he had seen this before, even though he knew he hadn't. "I don't know," Ethan said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I think we just found what the Titan has been hiding." Tarek glanced at him. "Do we open it?" Ethan hesitated, his hand hovering over the controls. The pod radiated an unsettling energy, something ancient and powerful. Whatever was inside, it wasn't human, and it definitely wasn't friendly. But they didn't have a choice. If they were going to survive, they needed to know what they were dealing with. Taking a deep breath, Ethan pressed the control, and the pod began to hum, its surface glowing with an otherworldly light. The machinery around them whirred to life, and the entire chamber seemed to pulse with energy. Suddenly, the pod split open with a hiss of steam, revealing its contents. Ethan's blood ran cold. Inside the pod was a figure tall, humanoid, but unmistakably alien. Its skin was pale, almost translucent, and its eyes glowed with a faint, eerie light. It was clad in strange, ancient armor, its body suspended in some kind of stasis field. Tarek took a step back, his hand instinctively reaching for his weapon. "What? What is that?" Ethan swallowed hard, his mind racing. This was it. This was the Titan's secret. The battleship hadn't just been a war machine, it had been carrying something. Something alien. Something powerful. And now it was awake. Ethan's heart raced as he stared at the figure in the pod. Every instinct screamed for him to retreat, to seal the door and pretend he had never seen this place. But curiosity anchored him to the spot, rooting him in place as he tried to comprehend the implications of what lay before him. This alien, a being suspended in stasis, was a link to a past humanity had long forgotten. Should we do something?" Tarek asked, his voice tinged with both fear and fascination. "What if it wakes up?" Ethan shook his head, his mind racing with possibilities. "We need to learn what this thing is. It could hold the key to the Titan's power or to the forces that are hunting us." As if responding to Ethan's thoughts, the alien's eyes flickered, glowing brighter for a moment. The stasis field around it shimmered, and the room pulsed with energy, vibrating in sync with the figure. Ethan felt a wave of warmth wash over him, and for a fleeting moment he felt connected to the being, as if some hidden communication flowed between them. "Ethan, step back," Tarek warned, raising his weapon. "It's moving." Ethan's breath caught as the alien stirred. The armor it wore seemed to shift and reshape, reacting to its movements. The creature's eyes snapped open, revealing depths of knowledge and experience that spanned millennia. It regarded them with a mix of curiosity and caution, its expression inscrutable. "Welcome," the alien said, its voice resonating through the chamber, deep and melodic. "You have awakened me." Ethan exchanged a glance with Tarek, unsure how to respond. Who are you?" "I am Zaris, guardian of the lost fleet," it replied, its gaze unwavering. "I have waited long for someone worthy to come and claim the power of the Titan." Tarek lowered his weapon slightly, skepticism etched on his face. "Power? What power?" Zaris stepped forward, the stasis field dissipating around it. "The Titan is more than a ship. It is a weapon of immense capability, forged to protect the galaxy from those who would exploit its resources and subjugate the innocent. But it has been dormant, its true potential locked away, until now." Ethan felt a spark of hope ignite within him. "Then you can help us." Zaris nodded slowly, its features softening. You are not the first to seek the power of the Titan. Many have come before you, and they have all failed. But you are different. Your spirit resonates with the ship. Together, we can unlock its true capabilities and protect your world. Tarek looked between Ethan and Zaris, uncertainty still shadowing his expression. And what's the catch? We can't just trust an alien we found in a pod. Trust must be earned, Zaris acknowledged. But I have no intention of harming you. My existence is tied to the Titan, and I am bound to protect it. There are forces gathering, seeking to harness the ship's power for their own destruction. Like the Zarjal, Ethan murmured, remembering the aggressive aliens they had fought earlier. They want this ship. Yes, Zaris replied, and worse. There are others who have long sought dominion over the stars, who see your species as little more than pawns. If they gain control of the Titan, they will bring chaos to your world and beyond. Ethan's mind raced, weighing the implications. They had already survived one battle, but there would be more. If Zaris was right, their enemies were organizing. They had to act quickly. Okay, Ethan said, his resolve hardening. What do we need to do? Zaris extended a hand, a faint glow emanating from its fingertips. You must integrate with the ship's core. Only then can we unlock its true potential and prepare for what is to come. What does that involve? Tarek asked warily. You must connect to the interface, Zaris explained. It will require mental and emotional fortitude, but it is necessary to unlock the power within. Ethan felt a surge of determination. He had come this far. He couldn't turn back now. Let's do it. They followed Zaris deeper into the chamber, arriving at a massive console that pulsed with energy. It was unlike any technology they had ever seen, a complex web of circuits and holographic displays shimmering with the echoes of ancient knowledge. Zaris gestured toward a seat at the center of the console, its expression serious. You must sit here. Once you are connected, I will guide you through the awakening process. Ethan nodded, swallowing hard as he approached the seat. He could feel the energy radiating from the console, wrapping around him like a warm embrace. As he settled into place, he glanced at Tarek, who stood nearby, a mix of apprehension and support in his eyes. Stay close, Ethan said, trying to reassure them both. Don't worry, I'm right here, Tarek replied, his grip tightening around his weapon, ready for anything. As Zaris began to weave its hands in intricate patterns, the console activated and streams of light shot toward Ethan. They connected with him, intertwining with his thoughts and memories, and he gasped as the sensation flooded his senses. Visions erupted around him, flashes of star systems, ancient battles, and glimpses of a future where humanity stood united and powerful. But there were also images of destruction, of ships burning in the void, worlds falling to darkness. The power was intoxicating, overwhelming, and Ethan felt himself drawn deeper. Focus, Zaris urged, its voice resonating in Ethan's mind. You must control it. The Titan is more than just a vessel. It is a legacy. You must be worthy to wield its power. Ethan forced himself to concentrate, pushing through the tide of emotions that threatened to sweep him away. He focused on the Titan's purpose, on the people who had fought for it, and on his determination to protect Earth. As he grounded himself in those thoughts, a surge of energy flooded through him, and the visions coalesced into clarity. He could see the Titan systems, its weapons, its defenses. He felt the pulse of its power, and he knew what needed to be done. I'm ready, he said, his voice steady. Then let us awaken the Titan, Zaris proclaimed, and together they began to unlock the ship's full potential. The chamber reverberated with energy as Ethan and Zaris worked together, weaving a tapestry of light and power that enveloped the Titan. Ethan felt his consciousness merge with the ship, the fabric of time and space bending to their will. The ancient technology pulsed beneath him, and he understood its intricacies in ways he had never thought possible. Focus on the ship's core, Zaris instructed, its voice echoing in his mind. Feel its heartbeat. Feel its pain. It is wounded, but it can heal. Ethan plunged deeper into the connection, visualizing the ship's core, a crystalline structure pulsing with a radiant light. It flickered like a star, but its brilliance was dimmed, shrouded in shadows that represented its untapped potential. He reached for it, guiding his thoughts and emotions like a master conductor. "I see you," he whispered, pouring his energy into the ship. "You are not alone." The core responded, surging with power. The shadows began to recede, and the light intensified, light the entire chamber. Ethan's heart raced with exhilaration, and he felt the ship's gratitude wash over him like a tidal wave. "Good," Zaris praised. "Now, we must infuse it with purpose. We cannot allow it to fall into the hands of those who would misuse its power." Ethan nodded, determination coursing through him. "What do we need to do?" "Visualize your intent," Zaris guided him. "Imagine the battles we will face, the enemies we will confront. Project that energy into the core." Taking a deep breath, Ethan closed his eyes, envisioning the battles against the Zarjal and whatever new threats loomed on the horizon. He focused on the desperate need to protect Earth and the lives of those he cared about. The image of his home planet burned brightly in his mind, a beacon of hope amidst the chaos. With each thought, the core absorbed his energy, amplifying his resolve. The ship began to vibrate, the sound resonating in Ethan's bones. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the Titan, breaking the serene connection. The lights flickered, and a voice boomed from the ship's intercom. "Intruders detected. Multiple ships approaching. Weapon systems offline." "What?" Terk shouted, his voice filled with panic. "How many?" "Too many," Zaris replied, its tone grave. "We must complete the awakening process now. If we do not, we will be overwhelmed." Ethan felt a surge of urgency. "Can we activate the defenses while we're still connecting?" "Not while you're linked to the core," Zaris explained. "But I can initiate a temporary shield. It will buy us time, but we must finish the integration before they breach the ship." "Do it," Ethan urged, redirecting his focus back to the core. "We have to protect the Titan." Zaris raised its hands, chanting in an ancient language. The chamber shook as energy coursed through the ship, and a shimmering barrier enveloped the Titan, pulsating in a radiant blue light. Ethan could feel the pressure of the shield, a cocoon of safety amidst the impending storm. "Now, Ethan," Zaris commanded, "we need your full concentration." Ethan returned to the core, feeling the weight of their situation pressing down on him. He envisioned the ship as a fortress, standing resolute against the tide of enemies. As he poured his intent into the core, a surge of energy erupted from the ship, enveloping the chamber in a dazzling display. The alarms blared louder, and Ethan could hear the telltale sounds of enemy ships breaching the Titan's outer hull. He gritted his teeth, pushing deeper into the connection, allowing the power of the Titan to flow through him. He felt the ship's ancient wisdom mingling with his own, creating a symphony of energy that resonated with purpose. "Almost there," Zaris urged, its voice growing more intense. "We need to unlock the weapon systems before they penetrate the core." Ethan focused harder, visualizing the ship's armament, the massive cannons, the torpedoes, the energy projectors. He could see them in his mind's eye, each one brimming with potential. As he pushed his will into the core, the weapon systems began to hum, awakening from their long dormancy. "Come on," Terk shouted, glancing anxiously at the door. "We need to move." With one final surge, Ethan shouted, "Activate weapon systems!" The core exploded with light, and the ship's systems roared to life. The consoles around them flickered with data as the Titan's armaments came online, ready to respond to the imminent threat. "Shield strength at maximum," Zaris announced. "Weapon systems activated. Targeting systems online." Ethan's heart pounded as he surveyed the displays. Multiple blips appeared on the tactical screen, enemy ships closing in fast. The Zarjal fleet had returned, and this time they were not alone. "Prepare to engage," Ethan ordered, adrenaline surging through him. "We won't let them take the Titan." As if sensing their resolve, the Titan answered with a low rumble, its core thrumming with power. Ethan felt a sense of unity with his ship, a bond forged in battle. He was no longer just a human pilot. He was the embodiment of the Titan, its will and purpose flowing through him. "Enemies incoming," the AI announced, the calmness of its voice contrasting with the chaos unfolding around them. "Engaging defensive maneuvers." "Steady, everyone," Ethan said, his voice strong and authoritative. "We'll hit them hard." The chamber shook as the Titan unleashed its first volley of fire, beams of energy lancing out into the void. The alien ships responded, their own weapons firing in return. But the Titan was no longer just a relic of the past. It had awakened, and with it, a renewed sense of purpose. Ethan felt a surge of energy as the ship maneuvered gracefully through the oncoming fire. The shield absorbed the impact of enemy blasts, holding strong against the assault. He watched as the enemy vessels were engulfed in brilliant explosions, their formations breaking apart under the relentless onslaught. "Good work, Captain," Zaris praised, a hint of admiration in its voice. "But do not let your guard down. They will retaliate." As if on cue, a barrage of enemy fire struck the Titan, shaking it violently. Alarms blared again, and Ethan gripped the console tighter, his focus sharpening. "Status report," he shouted. "Shields at 70%, Terk replied, his eyes scanning the displays. "We've taken some hits, but we're still in the fight." "Target the lead ship," Ethan commanded, his mind racing. "We need to take out their command vessel to disrupt their coordination." The Titan responded, the targeting systems locking onto the lead Zarjal ship. Ethan could feel the ship's energy surging through him, an intoxicating blend of power and purpose. "Fire!" he shouted. The ship unleashed another devastating volley, and the lead Zarjal ship erupted in a spectacular explosion, light the darkness of space. Cheers erupted in the command center, but Ethan knew better than to celebrate just yet. "More are coming," Terk shouted, pointing to the tactical display. "They're regrouping for a counterattack." "Then we need to make this count," Ethan replied, adrenaline fueling his determination. "Prepare for a full assault. We're not backing down." The Titan quaked under the pressure of enemy fire as Ethan orchestrated the onslaught, commanding the ship with newfound confidence. The Zarjal fleet regrouped, their formations tightening as they readied for a counterattack, but the ship felt alive under his command, its ancient power coursing through him like a river of energy. "Status report," Ethan called out, his eyes locked on the tactical display, which was cluttered with red blips representing the enemy ships closing in. "Shields holding at 50%, but they're weakening," Terk responded, sweat beading on his forehead as he adjusted the targeting parameters. "We need to take out their support ships before they can reinforce their lines." "Agreed," Ethan said, nodding resolutely. "Switch to rapid fire mode. Target the closest vessels and give them everything we've got." The Titan hummed, its weapon systems responding to Ethan's command. He felt the ship's power resonating with his own heartbeat, a rhythmic reminder that they were in this fight together. As energy beams rained down on the nearest Zarjal ships, Ethan witnessed the devastating impact. The enemy formations erupted into chaos, ships splintering and exploding under the relentless barrage. "Good shot," Terk exclaimed, a hint of excitement creeping into his voice as he monitored the damage reports. "They're breaking apart." Ethan's pulse quickened as he watched the tactical display, feeling a surge of hope. They were gaining ground, but he knew better than to let complacency set in. "Don't let up. Keep pressing the attack. We need to force them into retreat." Just as he finished speaking, alarms blared once again, cutting through the victorious atmosphere. The console lit up with warnings as an ominous red blip appeared on the radar. A massive Zarjal dreadnought, far larger than the ships they had faced so far, had emerged from the depths of the surrounding asteroids. "Zaris, what is that?" Ethan shouted, dread pooling in his stomach as the dreadnought's weapon systems powered up, the dark energy coiling around its hull like a predator ready to strike. "An enemy capital ship," Zaris said, its tone serious. "It dwarfs anything we've encountered. Its weapons are capable of piercing our shields." "Can we evade it?" Ethan asked, glancing at Tarek, who shook his head grimly. Not without risking our position. It's too fast, Tarek replied, worry etching lines across his face. If it gets a clean shot, we have to take it down before it fires, Ethan declared, steeling himself against the dread creeping in. Zaris, can the Titan handle it? It can, but we must be strategic, Zaris advised. Focus your fire on the Dreadnought's weapon systems. If we can disable its firepower, we'll have a chance. Let's do it, Ethan shouted, determination igniting within him. He adjusted the targeting systems, locking onto the Dreadnought's massive weapon emplacements. Fire at will. The Titan unleashed a torrent of energy beams, each one striking the Dreadnought with blinding intensity. The surrounding space lit up with flashes of color as explosions erupted across the Dreadnought's surface, but the ship remained resilient, its defenses absorbing the impact. Direct hit, Tarek shouted, but his voice was laced with worry. They're returning fire. Ethan braced himself as the Dreadnought fired back, a colossal beam of energy arcing toward them. He felt the Titan shudder beneath him as the shields absorbed the impact, but the force rattled him to his core. Status? Ethan demanded, grit teeth. Shields down to 30%, Tarek reported, urgency creeping into his voice. We can't take another hit like that. Then we need to outmaneuver it, Ethan said, eyes darting between the displays. Zaris, what are the ship's capabilities? Can we perform a tactical evasive maneuver? Yes, Zaris replied, its voice calm amidst the chaos. But it requires precise timing. You must predict its firing arc. Let's do it, Ethan shouted, adrenaline pumping. On my mark, initiate evasive maneuvers to the starboard side. Tarek, get ready to fire on my command. Ready when you are, Tarek replied, his hands hovering over the controls. Ethan focused on the Dreadnought, tracking its energy buildup. He could feel the tension in the air, the weight of the impending blast looming over them. Now, he yelled. The Titan jolted as it veered to the right, narrowly avoiding the Dreadnought's beam. The energy shot past them, light the void as the Titan pivoted, bringing its weapons back online. In that moment of vulnerability, Ethan seized the opportunity. Fire, he commanded, unleashing a volley aimed directly at the Dreadnought's weapons array. Energy beams erupted from the Titan, striking the Dreadnought with relentless force. One by one, the enemy's weapon systems exploded in a flurry of sparks and debris, leaving the Dreadnought vulnerable and exposed. Direct hits. Their systems are failing, Tarek exclaimed, a note of exhilaration creeping into his voice. Ethan felt a surge of triumph, but knew they couldn't relent. Keep firing, don't let up until it's gone. The Titan continued its assault, pounding the Dreadnought with wave after wave of energy. The alien ship rocked under the barrage, struggling to regain control. Just as Ethan thought victory was within reach, alarms blared once more. Captain, reinforcements are incoming, Zaris warned, urgency filling its voice. We need to finish this now. Then let's end it, Ethan shouted, determination burning bright. He pushed the Titan to its limits, pouring every ounce of energy into the final assault. The Dreadnought shuddered, smoke billowing from its hull as its systems failed one by one. Come on, Ethan urged the ship, willing it to unleash one last strike. With a deafening explosion, the Dreadnought's core ruptured, sending debris spiraling through space as it disintegrated. A wave of silence washed over them, the aftermath of battle hanging in the air. Status? Ethan asked, breathless. Enemy fleet in disarray, Tarek reported, his eyes wide with disbelief. They're retreating. Ethan felt a rush of exhilaration as cheers erupted in the command center. We did it. We actually did it. But as the adrenaline faded, a new realization settled in. The battle was won, but the war was far from over. The remaining Zarjal ships were still out there, and the Dreadnought was just a prelude to the greater challenges that lay ahead. Zaris, Ethan said, his voice steadying, we need to prepare for what's next. This won't be the last we see of them. Indeed, Zaris replied, its tone somber. They will regroup and return, but now you possess the means to defend your world. We must unlock the Titan's full potential if we are to prevail." Ethan nodded, understanding the weight of their new responsibility. "Then let's get to work." The silence in the command center felt surreal after the chaos of battle. Ethan surveyed the monitors displaying the remnants of the Zarjal fleet as they fled into the depths of space, a mixture of triumph and concern swirling within him. They had won the day, but he could feel the shadows of greater dangers lurking just beyond the stars. "Initial scans of the battlefield are complete," Zaris announced, its voice steady despite the recent turmoil. "The enemy's retreating forces have left behind debris. We should investigate." "Agreed," Ethan replied, his mind racing with possibilities. There could be valuable intel among the wreckage. "Terk, plot a course for the nearest debris field." "On it," Terk said, tapping commands into the console. "Initiating approach sequence now." As the Titan glided toward the debris, Ethan felt a mix of anticipation and trepidation. This wasn't just about salvaging technology. It was about understanding the Zarjal and their motivations. If they were to defend Earth, they needed to know their enemy inside and out. "Keep an eye on the tactical display," Ethan instructed, his eyes glued to the swirling remnants of the battle. "We don't want to get ambushed again." The ship's sensors pinged, highlighting fragments of shattered vessels drifting in the vacuum. Ethan watched intently as Terk maneuvered the Titan through the debris, careful to avoid any hazardous pieces. "Looks like we've got some intact escape pods," Terk said, his excitement palpable. "Should we investigate?" "Definitely," Ethan replied. They could provide insight into what the Zarjal were planning or even contain survivors. As they approached the escape pods, Ethan noticed that several of them were still intact, their systems blinking with life. "Zaris, can you interface with those pods? See what information we can extract?" "Connecting now," Zaris said. A moment later, the display flickered, revealing fragmented data files from the escape pods. "Accessing logs. There is a wealth of information here." Ethan leaned closer to the screen, scanning the data. "What do you see?" "Most of the information is damaged, but I'm piecing together communications between the Zarjal vessels," Zaris explained. "They were discussing a larger offensive plans for a coordinated strike on Earth." "Earth?" Terk echoed, disbelief coloring his tone. "Why would they target us? They just lost a massive fleet." "Out of fear, perhaps," Zaris posited. "Their defeat may have heightened their resolve. The Titan poses a significant threat to their plans." Ethan felt a chill creep up his spine. "Then we need to prepare for their next move. If they're regrouping, we have to anticipate what they'll do." The sensors pinged again, drawing Ethan's attention back to the display. "More ships are emerging from hyperspace," Terk warned, his voice taut with urgency. "They're incoming fast." "Can we outrun them?" Ethan asked, adrenaline surging. "No time," Terk said, fingers dancing over the controls. "They're already in range. We need to fight." "Zaris, can we activate any of the Titan's offensive capabilities now?" Ethan asked, heart racing. "Systems are still integrating," Zaris replied. "We can deploy some of the basic weaponry, but the full arsenal will take time to become operational." "Then let's make every shot count," Ethan commanded, taking his seat at the helm. "Terk, engage the nearest target. We'll buy ourselves some time." As Terk initiated the attack sequence, the Titan rumbled in response. Ethan felt the power thrumming beneath him, and he channeled that energy into the tactical decisions. The Zarjal ships emerged from the chaos of the debris field, their sleek forms glistening with menace as they zeroed in on the Titan. "Here we go," Terk shouted, a mix of fear and excitement in his voice. The first energy beams lanced out from the Titan, striking the lead Zarjal ship and causing it to falter. "Good hit, keep them coming," Ethan urged, adrenaline pumping through his veins. But the incoming vessels were relentless. Energy blasts erupted around them, shaking the Titan with every impact. The shields fluctuated, straining under the onslaught, and Ethan felt the ship's systems groan as they absorbed the damage. "Shields down to 20%, Tarek warned, eyes wide. "We can't take much more." "Focus fire on the lead ship. Disable their command," Ethan shouted, gritting his teeth against the impacts. The Titan responded to his command, and Ethan felt the ship's energy surge through him. They unleashed a concentrated barrage at the lead Zarjal vessel, and this time the blast struck true. The enemy ship staggered, its weapons flickering as they struggled to maintain power. "Good work," Tarek shouted, the thrill of battle energizing him. "They're breaking formation." Ethan seized the moment. "Tarek, prepare to flank them. We need to capitalize on their weakness." "On it," Tarek replied, pivoting the Titan to intercept the disoriented Zarjal ships. Ethan felt the ship respond, its ancient technology aligning with his instincts as they charged forward. As they barreled into the fray, Ethan's focus sharpened. The Titan danced through the chaos, its weapons firing with lethal precision. The Zarjal ships struggled to regain their formation, but Ethan and Tarek were relentless, striking at their flanks and disabling their weapon systems one by one. "Watch out!" Zarus shouted suddenly. "Incoming torpedoes from the rear." Ethan's heart raced as he glanced at the sensors, spotting the incoming threat. "Tarek, evasive maneuvers, now." With a flick of his controls, Tarek swung the Titan to the side, just as the torpedoes streaked past, detonating against the remnants of the nearby debris. The shockwaves rocked the Titan, but they remained intact. "Good move," Ethan said, breathing a sigh of relief. "Now counterattack." They unleashed a powerful volley at the remaining Zarjal ships, and one by one they began to falter. But just as victory seemed within reach, a chilling realization washed over Ethan. "Zarus, how many more are out there?" he asked, dread settling in. "Scanning," Zarus replied, the tension palpable in the air. "There are more vessels emerging from their hidden position. It appears they have regrouped." "Damn it," Ethan cursed under his breath, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. "We need to retreat and regroup. We can't fight them all." "Agreed," Zarus said. "The Titan is not yet fully operational. We must make a strategic withdrawal." "Tarek, plot an escape route," Ethan ordered. "We need to get out of here." "Working on it," Tarek said, tapping away at the controls, his fingers moving frantically as the display showed more enemy ships entering the fray. Ethan took one last look at the chaos of battle, the swirling mass of ships and explosions. They had to escape not just for themselves, but for the future of Earth. They needed to regroup and harness the full power of the Titan before facing the Zarjal again. "Let's go," Ethan shouted, feeling the ship respond to his command as they made their escape into the darkness of space, leaving behind the remnants of the battle. The Titan surged through the void, its engines roaring to life as Ethan wrestled with the controls. The ship felt alive beneath him, an ancient creature responding to its master. The chaos of battle faded into the background as they fled the scene, the Zarjal ships now trailing behind them, but not for long. "Distance from enemy vessels?" Ethan asked, adrenaline still coursing through his veins. "Approximately 5 kilometers," Tarek replied, a bead of sweat trickling down his brow. "They're gaining on us." "Can we increase speed?" Ethan urged, gripping the controls tighter. "Not without overloading the systems," Tarek said, anxiety creeping into his voice. "We need to get somewhere safe to regroup." "Zarus, can we activate the Titan's stealth capabilities?" Ethan asked, his mind racing. "If we can cloak ourselves, we might evade their sensors." "Yes, but it requires time to initialize," Zarus warned, "and the energy drain could leave us vulnerable." "Do it," Ethan ordered. "We need every advantage we can get." "Tarek, prepare for evasive maneuvers. If they fire at us, we'll need to dodge." With a low hum, the Titan began its transformation, its hull shifting to adapt to the stealth protocols. Ethan felt the tension mount in the air as the Zarjal ships closed the distance, their silhouettes growing larger in the viewports. "Initializing cloaking sequence," Zarus said, the the ship vibrating subtly under the strain of the systems. Just then, alarms blared, cutting through the tension like a knife. "Incoming fire!" Terk shouted, his eyes wide as he noticed the targeting beams locking onto them. "Evasive maneuvers, now!" Ethan barked, slamming the controls to the side. The Titan lurched, veering sharply as a barrage of energy blasts whizzed past them, light the darkness of space. "Shields holding at 20%, Terk reported, voice tinged with fear. "We need to hurry." "Almost there," Zaris announced, the urgency in its voice palpable. 10 seconds to full activation of stealth systems. The enemy ships unleashed another round of fire, and Ethan gritted his teeth, feeling the Titan shudder under the impacts. The screen flashed warnings as the shields flickered dangerously low. Come on," Ethan urged, sweat trickling down his back. "We need that cloak." 3 seconds, Zaris called out. "Now," Ethan shouted as the controls lit up with notifications. In an instant, the Titan shimmered and then vanished from sight, the stars outside becoming just a glimmering backdrop. The transition felt surreal, and Ethan let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. "Status?" he asked, heart racing. "Cloaking active," Zaris confirmed, relief evident in its voice. "We are currently undetectable to the Zarjal sensors." Ethan leaned back, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly as they slipped into the veil of invisibility. "Good. Now we need to put some distance between us and those ships." "Plotting a course for the nearest planet," Terk said, fingers tapping away at the console. "We can hide in the atmosphere and analyze our next steps." As the Titan glided silently through the darkness, Ethan's thoughts swirled. They had faced unimaginable odds and survived, but the threat was far from over. They needed to regroup, fortify their defenses, and prepare for the inevitable Zarjal counterattack. "Zaris, how long until the Titan is fully operational?" Ethan asked, glancing at the various systems still stabilizing. "Approximately 6 hours," Zaris replied. "Once fully operational, we can harness the full extent of the ship's weaponry and defenses." "Then we use that time wisely," Ethan said, determination filling his voice. "Let's analyze the data we recovered from the Zarjal escape pods and figure out their strategies. We need to understand them if we're going to survive." "Understood," Zaris replied, accessing data now. Ethan turned to Terk, who was focused on the navigation display. "You did good out there," Ethan said, clapping Terk on the shoulder. "We're still here because of your quick thinking." "Thanks, but it was a team effort," Terk replied, a modest smile creeping onto his face. "I couldn't have done it without you and Zaris." "Let's keep that momentum going," Ethan said, looking back at the displays as Zaris processed the data. "We can't afford to underestimate the Zarjal again. They may be regrouping, but we have the advantage of knowledge now." The ship hummed around them, a comforting presence in the wake of the chaos they had just escaped. As Zaris sorted through the data, Ethan felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were part of something much larger now, the fate of Earth resting in their hands. "Captain," Zaris called, breaking the contemplative silence, "I've analyzed the enemy communications. They are mobilizing their forces to prepare for a larger offensive. The plans involve multiple strikes across different human colonies, targeting key strategic points." "Damn it," Ethan muttered, running a hand through his hair. "They're not going to give up. We need to get back to Earth and warn them. We can't allow them to take any more territory." "Agreed," Terk chimed in. "But we need to make sure we're ready before we face them again. This time, we can't just react. We need to strategize." Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle back on his shoulders. "Let's start preparing for our next move." Zaris, compile the tactical analysis and create a briefing for the crew. "We'll need everyone on board for what's to come." "Understood," Zaris replied, its voice steady. Initiating the briefing compilation now. As the Titan glided through the silent void, Ethan felt a sense of unity among the crew, a bond forged in the fires of battle. They had survived against the odds, and together they would prepare for the challenges ahead. Hours passed, filled with strategic discussions and tactical preparations. The atmosphere aboard the Titan shifted from the tension of battle to a focused determination. Ethan knew they were on the brink of something monumental, and they needed to be ready for whatever the Zarjul would throw at them. As the ship settled into its new trajectory toward Earth, a sense of hope began to bloom within Ethan. Humanity had faced countless challenges throughout its history, but they had always persevered. Now, with a Titan at their side, they would fight back against the darkness. "Prepare for a briefing in the main deck," Ethan announced, his voice steady and authoritative. "We need every hand on deck if we're going to defend our world." Terk gave him an encouraging nod, and Zaris responded, "I will ensure all systems are prepared for optimal efficiency." As the crew assembled, Ethan stood at the helm, gazing out into the vastness of space. Stars sparkled against the black, a reminder of the infinite possibilities that lay ahead. They had a fight to win, and they would fight for Earth together. "Humans will not be so easily broken," Ethan vowed, feeling the weight of their history behind him. "We will rise, and we will fight. Humanity, yeah." The crew erupted into cheers, their spirits ignited by the passion and resolve that filled the air. Together, they would face the challenge ahead. United as one, humanity's lost battleship had been found, and now they were ready to fight. The Titan slipped through the atmosphere, a sleek silhouette against the backdrop of Earth's vibrant blue oceans and green continents. I stood at the helm, my heart pounding with a mixture of hope and trepidation. The last time I had laid eyes on our home, it was under siege by the Zarjul, an alien force determined to wipe out humanity. But now we were back, and with us we carried the knowledge and the strength to fight back. "Captain Rhodes, we are nearing the coordinates of the assembly," Terk announced, his fingers deftly maneuvering the control panel. "We'll be docking shortly." I nodded, stealing a glance at the viewscreen where cities sprawled beneath us, still recovering from the devastation of the Zarjul invasion. Each structure, each street was a reminder of what we had fought to protect. "Good. We need to share our intel as quickly as possible. The sooner we can rally the colonies, the better." As we approached the designated docking bay, a sense of urgency thrummed in the air. The Titan, humanity's lost battleship, had returned not as a relic of the past, but as a beacon of hope for our future. It was time to stand united. Docking procedures were swift, and the ship settled into the bay with a soft thud. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the challenges ahead. The crew had been through hell, and now it was up to us to motivate a fractured humanity to rise once again. As we disembarked, a wave of familiar faces greeted us. Men and women, soldiers and civilians alike, gathered in the bay, their expressions a mix of disbelief and relief. Among them was Commander David Hale, a rugged veteran with a scar running down his cheek, a testament to his years of service. "Captain Rhodes, you're back," he exclaimed, a rare smile breaking across his weathered face. "We didn't know if we'd ever see you again." "It's good to be home, David," I replied, clapping him on the shoulder. "But we don't have time to celebrate. The Zarjul will be regrouping, and we need to prepare for their next move." Hale's expression shifted, the weight of my words settling in. "I've been trying to reach the other colonies, but communication has been spotty. They're reluctant to trust us, especially after the last invasion." I frowned, a knot forming in my stomach. Distrust among our people would be our downfall. Then we'll have to show them what we've learned. "Terk, get the data we recovered from the Zarjul ships. Zaris, can you help compile the tactical analysis?" "Of course," Zaris replied, its voice echoing softly through the ship's speakers. "Accessing the data now." "Let's meet in the strategy room," I instructed, leading the way through the ship's corridors, now familiar yet still awe-inspiring. The Titan was more than just a vessel. It was a symbol of resilience, a reminder of what humanity could achieve when united. As we gathered around the large holo table in the strategy room, the atmosphere grew tense. Terk projected the Zarjul communications onto the table, the alien text swirling into readable format. "Here," he pointed to a series of logs. "This data outlines their tactical movements. They're planning to launch a coordinated assault on several key human colonies. The room fell silent, the gravity of the situation sinking in. If we don't act quickly, we could lose everything, Hale said, his voice grave. What are the colonies? I asked, trying to process the information. Who's at risk? Terk flipped through the data, his expression growing more serious. It looks like they're targeting New Haven, Aurora Base, and Elysium Colony. All three are vital for resource distribution and technological advancements. Elysium Colony? I repeated, my mind racing. That's where the Elysians are located. If they fall, we lose a critical ally. Exactly, Terk confirmed, urgency flooding his tone. We need to get there first and warn them. Then we'll split our forces, I decided, feeling the weight of leadership settle upon my shoulders. Terk, you take the Titan to Elysium. They need our support. I'll lead a team to New Haven to gather what we can and warn them of the impending attack. Hale nodded in agreement. I'll rally the troops and prepare our defenses. We need everyone ready to fight. Good. Let's move quickly, I said, my heart racing. We have no time to waste. As we prepped for our missions, I felt a surge of determination coursing through me. We had been through so much together, and now we were on the brink of a new war, a war that would determine the future of humanity. I boarded the Titan with Terk and Zaris, the ship humming with energy as the engines powered up. Remember, I said, looking at my crew, we are not just fighting for survival, we are fighting for our legacy. We have to show the Zarjal that humanity is not to be trifled with. Terk nodded, his eyes fierce with determination. They'll learn to fear us. With a final glance at Earth's blue orb, I turned back to the controls, the weight of our mission pressing heavily on my heart. We were heading into the storm, but we wouldn't back down. Not now, not ever. As we ascended into the void, the stars glittered like a distant promise, each one a testament to the resilience of humanity. We would rise again, and this time we would fight back. As the Titan broke free from Earth's gravity, I felt a mixture of excitement and fear. The battle for humanity's future was just beginning, and I knew we would face challenges we could never have imagined. But I also knew that together, we were stronger than any threat that dared to stand in our way. Plotting course for Elysium Colony, Terk said, fingers flying over the console. We'll arrive in a few hours. Good. Zaris, prepare the tactical briefing for when we arrive, I instructed, my mind racing with strategies. We need to be ready for anything. Understood, Captain. I will compile the data immediately, Zaris replied. As the stars whizzed by, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settled in my gut. The Zarjal were ruthless, and they wouldn't rest until they had claimed what they sought. But we had faced them before, and we would face them again. This time, we would be ready. The journey to Elysium Colony passed in a blur of preparations and discussions. I focused on our strategy, weighing the risks of confrontation against the necessity of keeping our allies safe. When we finally arrived in Elysium's orbit, the vibrant colors of the colony glowed against the dark expanse of space, a beacon of hope. Elysium Colony ahead, Terk announced, his voice filled with anticipation. We're receiving signals, but they're weak. Something isn't right. I frowned, concern creeping into my mind. Can you get a visual? Terk adjusted the controls, and the screen flickered to life, revealing the colony's surface. The once bustling metropolis now lay eerily quiet, the buildings intact but devoid of movement. No ships in orbit, no activity on the ground, Terk reported. It's like they've all disappeared. Or worse, I muttered, dread settling in my stomach. Prepare for landing. We need to investigate. As we descended toward the colony, I couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom. The Zarjal could have already infiltrated Elysium, and if that was the case, we had to move fast. We were the only hope for the inhabitants of this place, and I wasn't about to let them down. The Titan touched down in the docking bay, the low thrum of the engines echoing around us. The silence that followed was unnerving, amplifying the pounding of my heart. Stay alert, I instructed as we disembarked, weapons drawn and ready for any threat. Terk and Zaris fell into step beside me, our footsteps echoing in the empty corridors of the docking station. The atmosphere felt charged, as if the very air was thick with tension. "Zaris, can you access the colony's security systems?" I asked, my instincts screaming at me to be cautious. "Attempting to bypass their systems now," Zaris replied, its tone calm and collected amidst the growing unease. As we moved deeper into the colony, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Shadows flitted just beyond our line of sight, and every creak of the metal beneath our feet sent a chill down my spine. "Captain," Zaris said suddenly, "I have access to the security feeds. There has been significant activity in the residential district. I'm pulling up footage now." The display flickered to life, showing glimpses of the colony before everything went dark. Then, the footage showed a group of Zarjal soldiers moving through the streets, their alien forms stark against the backdrop of the colony. They were systematically rounding up civilians, and I felt my blood run cold. "They're here," I breathed, clenching my fist in anger. "We need to move, now." "Where to?" Terk asked, urgency in his voice. "Head toward the residential district. We need to find survivors and warn them of the Zarjal forces before it's too late," I commanded. With renewed purpose, we raced through the empty halls of the colony, the sounds of our footsteps mingling with the distant echoes of chaos. I felt a fire ignite within me, a determination to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. As we approached the residential district, the once bustling area lay in ruins, debris scattered across the streets. I could see signs of struggle, broken doors, overturned furniture, and faint trails of blood leading away from the scene. "Keep your eyes open," I cautioned, scanning the area for any signs of life or danger. Suddenly, Zaris's voice cut through the tension. "Captain, I'm detecting life signs nearby, approximately 50 meters ahead." "Let's move," I urged, adrenaline surging through my veins. If there were survivors, we had to reach them before the Zarjal did. As we pressed on, I felt a growing sense of dread. What if we were too late? What if the Zarjal had already captured the inhabitants? But I couldn't let fear control me. I had to be the leader they needed. We rounded a corner, and my heart raced as we spotted a group of civilians huddled in an alleyway, their faces pale and drawn with fear. A few children clung to their parents, eyes wide with terror. "Over here," I called out, rushing toward them. "We're here to help." The group looked up, hesitant at first, but as they recognized our uniforms, a flicker of hope ignited in their eyes. "You're with the Titan," one man exclaimed, stepping forward. "Thank God, we thought we were the only ones left." "Not for long," I assured them, scanning the area for any signs of Zarjal presence. "We need to get you to safety. Follow us." As we led them through the ruins of the colony, I felt a sense of responsibility weigh heavily on my shoulders. We couldn't afford to lose anyone else. The Zarjal had already taken too much from us. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the alley, and the ground shook beneath our feet. I turned to see a group of Zarjal soldiers advancing toward us, weapons raised and eyes glinting with malice. "Run!" I shouted, instinct taking over. We had to get the civilians to safety. Terk opened fire, his shots ringing out through the chaos. "Cover us, Captain!" he yelled, taking down one of the Zarjal soldiers. "Zaris, can you create a distraction?" I ordered, my heart racing as I exchanged fire with the enemy. "Activating countermeasures," Zaris replied, and suddenly, the alley erupted in blinding lights and loud sounds, disorienting the Zarjal. "Now, move!" I barked, pushing the civilians forward as we retreated, my heart pounding with every step. The chaos swirled around us, the sounds of battle growing louder as we fought our way through the streets. I could feel the weight of responsibility on my shoulders, but I couldn't let it break me. We had to survive. We had to fight back. As we finally reached a secure location, I took a moment to catch my breath, adrenaline still coursing through my veins. The civilians were safe for now, but the battle was far from over. "Are you all okay?" I asked, looking into the eyes of those who had followed us. They nodded, fear still evident in their expressions. "We thought we were done for," one of the mothers said, her voice trembling. "We're not done yet," I replied, a fierce determination rising within me. "We will fight back." With that, we began to strategize, gathering everyone together to plan our next move. We would not let the Zarjal take what was rightfully ours. We would rise, we would fight, and we would reclaim our future. The sun hung low over Elysium Colony, casting an eerie glow over the remnants of what had once been a vibrant community. I gathered the civilians in a makeshift barricade, my heart pounding as I surveyed the scene. The Zarjal soldiers were relentless, and time was slipping away. We had to act quickly. "Listen up," I called out, my voice cutting through the tension. "We're going to move in small groups, staying low and using the alleyways. Zaris will provide cover with the distraction system, while Tarek and I lead the way. Stick close to us, and don't panic." The group nodded, determination flickering in their eyes. I felt a surge of hope. They were willing to fight for their home, and together, we would show the Zarjal that humanity wouldn't back down. "Zaris, activate the drones," I instructed, my voice steady. "We need eyes in the sky to monitor the Zarjal movements." "Activating now," Zaris confirmed. A series of small drones whirred to life above us, their sensors scanning the area for threats. The bright lights of their cameras flitted through the shadows, relaying real-time data back to us. Tarek moved beside me, his brow furrowed in concentration. "We'll need to secure a route to the main command center if we're going to fight back effectively." "I agree. If we can get control of the communication systems, we can warn the other colonies and coordinate a response," I replied, glancing at the civilians. "We'll need everyone's help." As we formulated a plan, I noticed a young boy, no older than 8, clutching a tattered teddy bear. His wide eyes reflected the fear of everything that had happened, and my heart ached for him. "What's your name?" I asked gently, kneeling to meet his gaze. "Liam," he whispered, his voice trembling. "Liam," I repeated, smiling despite the chaos around us. "You're brave for sticking with your family. Can you help us? We need to make sure everyone stays together, okay?" He nodded slowly, a spark of determination igniting in his eyes. "Okay, I'll help." With our plan in place, we set out through the alleyways, the shadows cloaking our movements. The streets were a labyrinth of debris, a testament to the chaos the Zarjal had wrought. I kept my weapon ready, scanning for any signs of danger as we navigated through the ruins. "Drones report multiple Zarjal patrols in the area," Zaris said, its voice calm and calculated. "We need to move quickly to avoid detection." "Stay close," I instructed, leading the way with Tarek at my side. We maneuvered through the rubble, every creak of metal underfoot amplifying the tension in the air. As we approached a corner, the unmistakable sound of Zarjal voices reached my ears. My heart raced as I signaled for the group to stop. Tarek and I crouched low, peering around the corner. 3 Zarjal soldiers were conversing, their elongated forms standing in stark contrast to the dilapidated surroundings. They appeared to be discussing their strategy, oblivious to our presence. "We can take them out," Tarek whispered, gripping his weapon tightly. "They won't know what hit them." I shook my head, urgency propelling my thoughts. "No. We need to conserve our ammunition and avoid unnecessary confrontations. Let's find another route." We turned back, carefully retracing our steps, but my mind raced with the implications. If we couldn't confront them head-on, how would we reclaim our home? The alleyways led us deeper into the colony, and as we moved further away from the Zarjal, I felt a flicker of hope. But with each step, the realization sank in that we were racing against time. "Zaris, can you tap into the colony's communication systems?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "If we can send out a distress signal, we might reach some of the other colonies." "Attempting to connect," Zaris replied. "There's interference due to the Zarjal presence, but I will do my best." "Good," I said, glancing back at the civilians, who followed us closely, their eyes filled with uncertainty. "Keep moving, and stay quiet." We maneuvered through narrow passages, eventually arriving at a central square that led to the command center. The space was open. The remnants of once bustling market stalls now lay in ruins, creating a makeshift barrier between us and the command building. "Looks clear," Tarek said, scanning the surroundings. "We should move quickly." "Right," I replied, motioning for everyone to follow me. We dashed across the square, adrenaline pumping through my veins. As we reached the entrance of the command center, I felt a surge of determination. This was where we would make our stand. Inside, the command center was dark and silent, the screens flickering with static. "Zaris, can you access the systems?" I asked urgently. "I'll need a moment to bypass the security protocols," Zaris responded, its voice calm in the chaos. "Stand by." As Zaris worked, I kept watch, my senses heightened. Tarek and I stood by the entrance, weapons drawn, ready for any sign of danger. Minutes felt like hours as Zaris navigated through the security systems. Finally, a screen lit up, revealing a map of the colony with marked locations of Zarjal patrols. "I have access. Sending distress signals now," Zaris announced. "Good. Let's warn the others," I said, my heart racing as I watched the coordinates light up. Each one represented a colony, a chance to rally support. But before Zaris could send the signal, an alarm blared through the command center, the shrill sound echoing in our ears. "We've been detected," Zaris exclaimed, activating defense protocols. "Get ready," I shouted, adrenaline surging through my veins. "We need to hold them off." The door burst open, and Zarjal soldiers flooded in, their alien forms menacing against the backdrop of flashing lights. Tarek and I opened fire, the sound of gunfire ringing through the air as we took down the first wave. "Move," I shouted, gesturing for the civilians to find cover behind the consoles. "Stay low." The room erupted into chaos as more Zarjal soldiers poured in. I felt my heart race as I fought, focusing on keeping everyone safe. Each shot I fired felt like a desperate plea for survival, a reminder that humanity wouldn't go down without a fight. "Tarek, to the left," I yelled, watching as one of the Zarjal lunged toward him. Tarek spun around, taking the creature down before it could reach him. "Thanks, Captain," he shouted, adrenaline pumping through his veins. "Keep it up," I replied, my focus shifting to the door. More soldiers were advancing, and we needed to hold our ground. Zaris chimed in. "The drones are engaging, but we need to reinforce our position. I suggest falling back to the next room." "Agreed," I said, my mind racing with possibilities. "On my mark, we retreat." With a nod, Tarek and I prepared to fall back as the room filled with chaos. I could see the fear in the civilians' eyes as they huddled behind the consoles. We had to protect them at all costs. "Now," I shouted, and we moved as one, retreating into the adjoining room. The air was thick with tension as we barricaded the door behind us, our hearts pounding in unison. "Zaris, can you seal this room?" I asked, panting from the exertion. "Engaging lockdown protocols," Zaris replied, the room humming with energy as barriers slid into place. As we caught our breath, I glanced at the civilians. "We're safe for now, but we can't stay here. We need to find a way to fight back and regroup." Tarek wiped sweat from his brow. "What's the plan, Captain? We can't hold out forever." "Let's find a way to communicate with the other colonies. We need their support," I said, scanning the room for any working terminals. "There might be an auxiliary control room further in," Tarek suggested. "If we can get there, we might be able to send a wider signal." "Let's move, then," I said, determination surging through me. "We're not done yet." With Zaris leading the way, we navigated through the dimly lit corridors, the air thick with tension. I could feel the weight of responsibility on my shoulders, but I refused to let it crush me. We would find a way to fight back, no matter the cost. As we approached the auxiliary control room, the lights flickered ominously. "It's just up ahead," Zaris confirmed. "Stay alert." We reached the door, and Tarek carefully pushed it open. The room was cluttered with outdated equipment, but the console flickered to life at Zaris's command. "I'm accessing the systems now," Zaris said, its voice steady. "If we can get this terminal operational, I can send out the distress signal." As Zaris worked, I kept watch, scanning the area for any signs of Zarjal soldiers. The silence hung heavy in the air, and I could feel my heart racing. "Almost there," Zaris said, its voice breaking the tension. "Just a few more moments." Suddenly, the door creaked ominously, and I turned to see shadows moving outside. "We have company," I shouted, adrenaline surging through me. "Prepare for contact," Terk yelled, raising his weapon as the door burst open. The door crashed open with a violent force, and Zarjal soldiers stormed into the auxiliary control room, their weapons raised and eyes gleaming with malice. Time slowed as my instincts kicked in, my body moving on reflex. "Hold your fire until they get close," I shouted, positioning myself between the civilians and the encroaching threat. Terk moved beside me, his expression grim but resolute. The first Zarjal lunged, its elongated limbs reaching for us. I fired without hesitation, the round piercing through its chest with a sickening thud. It crumpled to the ground, but more poured in behind it, their presence overwhelming. "Zaris," I yelled, my heart racing. "How long until you can send the signal?" "Approximately 3 minutes," Zaris replied, its voice steady despite the chaos. "But I require you to hold them off for the duration." "Not a problem," I said through gritted teeth, adrenaline surging as I prepared for the onslaught. Terk unleashed a volley of fire, taking down 2 more soldiers. "We've got to buy time, Captain," he shouted, determination radiating from him. I nodded, focusing on the next wave of Zarjal. "Fall back to the control panel. Use it as cover." We backed up, using the console as a barrier, firing as we went. The air crackled with energy as weapons discharged, and I could feel the pressure mounting. Each shot felt like a desperate plea for survival, a reminder that we were fighting not just for ourselves, but for our entire species. "5 enemies remaining," Zaris called out, its tone almost mechanical amidst the chaos. "Initiating emergency defense protocols." As Zaris activated the automated defenses, several small drones flew from hidden compartments in the room, launching mini torpedoes at the advancing Zarjal. The explosive projectiles found their marks, taking out 2 more soldiers. "Keep pushing," I yelled, rallying Terk and the civilians. "We can't let them breach this room." Just as I thought we had the upper hand, a sharp hiss echoed through the air, and I turned to see one of the Zarjal soldiers holding a strange device, a plasma grenade. My heart raced as it activated, the glow intensifying in its grip. "No," I shouted, lunging forward. "Get back." In a split second, the creature hurled the grenade toward us. I dove to the side, grabbing Liam and pulling him to safety behind the console. Terk followed suit, but the explosion sent shockwaves through the room, throwing debris and shrapnel in all directions. I felt a sharp pain in my side as I hit the ground, the impact jarring. Dazed, I struggled to my feet, scanning the room for Liam. "Liam," I called out, my heart racing. "I'm here," he cried, his voice trembling. He was crouched low, peeking out from behind the console. "Stay down," I yelled, pushing through the pain as I moved to shield him. The remaining Zarjal soldiers advanced, but their advance was met with another burst from the drones, taking down another 2. "Zaris, how much longer?" I demanded, urgency lacing my voice. "Signal ready to send," Zaris confirmed. "Preparing to transmit." "Let it out," I shouted, my voice hoarse. "We need every colony to hear us." Zaris initiated the transmission, and a series of lights flickered on the console. "Sending now," it replied. "Emergency distress signal activated." The Zarjal soldiers hesitated, momentarily confused by the sudden surge of energy from our systems. Terk seized the opportunity, firing at the nearest soldier and hitting it squarely in the chest. "Let's go," I commanded, adrenaline pushing me forward. "We have to regroup and find an escape route." With the distress signal sent, the tide of battle shifted. I led the civilians through the wreckage, ducking behind consoles and navigating the debris as we moved deeper into the control room. The Zarjal were relentless, But the knowledge that reinforcements were on the way fueled our resolve. As we reached the back of the room, I spotted a service hatch that led to the maintenance tunnels. "Over here," I pointed, urgency thrumming in my chest. "We can escape through here." The civilians rushed toward the hatch, fear etched on their faces. I turned back to Terk, who was still firing at the remaining Zarjul. "We need to cover them." He nodded, his expression fierce. "Let's do this." As the last few Zarjul soldiers pushed into the control room, we unleashed a final volley of fire, our shots echoing like a battle cry. The creatures fell, and for a moment, silence reigned, broken only by the distant sounds of chaos outside. "Go! Get the civilians to safety!" I shouted, pushing Terk toward the hatch. "I'll cover you." "No way! We stick together," Terk insisted, firing one last round. "You're not doing this alone." "Now, Terk," I roared, the urgency of the situation boiling over. "We have to move." With a reluctant nod, Terk turned and ushered the civilians into the hatch. I took a deep breath, focusing on the remaining Zarjul soldiers, who were regrouping. I needed to buy them time. As the last of the civilians scrambled into the maintenance tunnels, I fired off a few more shots, taking down another Zarjul. But I knew I couldn't hold them off forever. "Let's go, Captain," Terk urged, his voice strained as he motioned for me to join them. I hesitated, then turned and sprinted toward the hatch, leaping into the darkness just as the remaining Zarjul surged forward. The maintenance tunnels were narrow and dimly lit, the air stale and heavy. I could hear the sounds of chaos still raging outside, but we were safe for the moment. I turned to Terk, who was already checking on the civilians. "Everyone okay?" he asked, concern etched on his face. "We're all right," one of the mothers replied, her voice shaky. "But where do we go from here?" "We need to find a way back to the surface and regroup," I said, determination firming my resolve. "Zaris, can you access the schematics of the tunnels?" "Analyzing now," Zaris replied. "There are multiple exit points we can use to emerge in different sectors of the colony." "Great," I said, feeling a renewed sense of hope. "We'll take the nearest exit and find a way to the command center again." We began moving through the tunnels, the cramped space lit by flickering overhead lights. The atmosphere was tense, the air thick with unspoken fears and lingering uncertainty. I could feel the weight of responsibility on my shoulders, knowing I had to lead these people to safety. "Do you think the signal reached the other colonies?" Terk asked as we walked, keeping his voice low. "I hope so," I replied, my mind racing with possibilities. "If they received it, they'll know we're in trouble. They won't abandon us." As we navigated the twists and turns of the maintenance tunnels, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. The silence was oppressive, every sound amplified in the cramped space. "We should keep moving," I urged, glancing over my shoulder. "We can't afford to linger." Just as I said that, a loud clang echoed from behind us, sending my heart racing. "What was that?" Liam asked, his voice small and frightened. "Probably just the old pipes," I reassured him, but the knot in my stomach tightened. "Let's keep going." We pressed on, the tunnel leading us deeper into the bowels of the colony. I could feel the tension in the air, a palpable sense of danger lurking just beyond our sight. As we reached a junction in the tunnels, Zaris halted us. "There are multiple exit points available. The closest one is just ahead, but there is a high probability of Zarjul presence in that area." I exchanged glances with Terk, my mind racing. "We need to take that risk. If we can find a way back to the surface, we can regroup and plan our next move." "Let's go," Terk said, determination lighting his eyes. We moved cautiously, each step deliberate as we approached the exit. The faint sounds of battle echoed above us, a reminder of the chaos still unfolding in the colony. "Ready?" I asked, glancing back at the civilians. They nodded, fear still evident in their expressions, but there was also a flicker of resolve. I reached for the door, pushing it open with a slow creak. The world beyond the exit was chaotic, the sounds of blaster fire and explosions ringing in our ears. "Stay close," I shouted, ushering the civilians through the doorway. We emerged into a side alley. The destruction of Elysium colony laid bare before us. "Where to now?" Tarek asked, scanning the area for signs of Zarjal soldiers. "Let's head toward the central plaza," I replied, pointing in the direction of the command center. "If we can reach it, we can secure a better vantage point." As we moved through the debris-strewn streets, the weight of the situation pressed heavily on my shoulders. We were running out of time, and the Zarjal would not rest until they had claimed the colony. Suddenly, a shadow moved in the corner of my vision. I turned, my pulse quickening as I saw a group of Zarjal soldiers approaching, their eyes fixed on us with predatory intensity. "Get down," I shouted, diving behind a nearby wreckage just as they opened fire. The civilians followed suit, and the area erupted into chaos. Tarek and I returned fire, our shots echoing through the alley as we fought to hold back the advancing soldiers. "Zaris, can you track our location and provide us with possible escape routes?" I yelled over the din. "Affirmative. I am analyzing the surrounding area for optimal paths," Zaris replied, its voice steady despite the turmoil. With each pulse of energy from our weapons, the fight seemed to grow more desperate. I could see the fear in the eyes of the civilians, and it fueled my determination to protect them. "Tarek, we need to find cover and regroup," I shouted, scanning the area for potential escape routes. He nodded, focusing on the advancing Zarjal. "On my mark, we move." Just as he prepared to fire, a loud explosion rocked the street, sending debris flying. The Zarjal stumbled, and I seized the moment. "Now, move," I yelled, sprinting toward the nearest alley. We dashed through the wreckage, the sounds of battle ringing in our ears. We could hear the Zarjal regrouping behind us, and I pushed the civilians to keep up as we navigated the maze of destroyed buildings. "Zaris, where to next?" I called out, my heart pounding. "Head south for approximately 200 meters, then turn left. There is a potential shelter nearby," Zaris instructed. We rushed forward, the weight of the situation pressing on me. We needed to find safety and regroup. As we reached the corner, we paused, catching our breath for a moment. "Do you think we'll be able to hold out?" Liam asked, fear etched on his face. "We'll find a way," I assured him, my voice steady. "We always do." With renewed determination, we pressed on, heading toward the shelter Zaris had indicated. But as we turned the corner, we were met with a sight that stopped us in our tracks. A group of Zarjal soldiers were blocking our path, their weapons raised and ready. The odds were stacked against us, and my heart sank as I realized we had walked right into a trap. "Back! Back!" I shouted, pushing the civilians behind me as I raised my weapon. But there was nowhere to go. The alleyway was closed off, and we were surrounded. The Zarjal advanced, their eyes glinting with malice. "We're not going down without a fight," Tarek yelled, determination blazing in his eyes. "Stay behind me," I commanded, preparing to make our last stand. The Zarjal closed in, and I felt the weight of the moment settling in. This was it, our last chance to fight for survival. As the first soldier lunged forward, I fired, and the battle erupted around us once more. The air was thick with tension as the Zarjal soldiers closed in, their weapons drawn and deadly intent written all over their angular faces. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, adrenaline coursing through my veins. This was it. We were outnumbered and outgunned, but I couldn't let fear take hold. Not now. "Everyone, get down," I shouted, instinctively positioning myself between the civilians and the advancing threat. Tarek moved in beside me, our backs against the crumbling wall of the alley. The civilians huddled low, their breaths quickening as they awaited the inevitable. "Zaris, can you provide any tactical support?" I yelled, my eyes darting around for potential escape routes. "Analyzing the enemy formations. High probability of success if you can create a diversion," Zaris replied, its voice steady amid the chaos. Tarek and I exchanged a glance, silently agreeing on our next move. "On my count," I whispered. 3, 2, 1, go." I fired at the nearest Zarjal, my shot hitting its shoulder. It stumbled back, momentarily stunned. Terk followed suit, firing rapidly at the others. The air filled with blaster fire and the sharp reports of our weapons, echoing off the walls of the alley. "Push forward," I shouted, using the distraction to sprint toward the Zarjul. We needed to create a gap, a moment of confusion that could allow us to escape. The soldiers hesitated, their attention split between us and the civilians still huddled behind. I seized the opportunity, barreling into the nearest Zarjul, using its own momentum against it. I tackled it to the ground, grappling for its weapon. "Captain," Terk shouted, taking down another soldier with precision. "Get back to the civilians." "I'm not leaving you," I yelled back, my voice strained as I wrestled with the Zarjul soldier beneath me. Just then, the ground shook, and I realized the distant sounds of battle were getting closer. Reinforcements were on their way, hopefully our allies. The Zarjul soldier managed to throw me off, scrambling back to its feet. I was up just as quickly, my weapon raised, and I fired again, hitting it square in the chest. It collapsed, and I took a moment to catch my breath. "Keep moving," I yelled at Terk, who was still engaging the remaining Zarjul. "We can't let them pin us down." Terk nodded, his expression grim but resolute. "Let's fall back and regroup with the civilians." As we maneuvered backward, I could see the civilians peeking out from their hiding spots, fear in their eyes, but also a glimmer of hope. They needed us to lead them to safety. "Zaris, can you map us a path to the command center?" I called out, reloading my weapon as we retreated further into the alley. "Affirmative," Zaris responded. "The command center is 3 blocks to the east. However, there are multiple enemy patrols in that area. Caution is advised." "Caution is our middle name," I replied, trying to lighten the mood despite the gravity of the situation. Terk and I exchanged looks, determination driving us forward. "On 3, I said, my heart racing. 1, 2, 3. We burst into action, sprinting down the alley, dodging incoming fire from the Zarjul. Terk fired back as we ran, trying to suppress the enemy as we pushed toward our destination. We rounded a corner, emerging into a wider street filled with the sounds of battle. Elysium Colony was a war zone, and it was hard to tell who was winning. I could see other humans fighting back against the Zarjul forces, determination etched on their faces. "There's our opening," Terk shouted, pointing to a small group of fighters engaged in combat. We dashed toward them, hoping to join forces. As we approached, I recognized one of the fighters, Commander Breck, a seasoned veteran known for his tactical brilliance. "Captain, you made it," Breck shouted, relief washing over his features. "We thought you were lost." "Not yet," I replied, panting. "We need to regroup and push toward the command center. We're gathering survivors." Breck nodded, rallying his team. "All right, men, we're moving toward the command center. Stay sharp." We joined forces, our small group bolstered by Breck's fighters. The momentum shifted in our favor as we pushed forward, the sound of blaster fire and explosions filling the air. As we approached the command center, the streets became increasingly chaotic. The Zarjul soldiers were more concentrated here, their numbers overwhelming. "Stick together," I yelled, keeping a watchful eye on the civilians. "We can't let them separate us." Suddenly, an explosion erupted nearby, sending debris flying. I threw myself protectively over Liam, shielding him as we hit the ground. "Stay down," I shouted, adrenaline pumping through my veins. The blast disoriented the Zarjul soldiers, giving us a moment to regain our footing. We scrambled to our feet, pushing forward through the smoke and dust. "We're almost there," Terk shouted, pointing to the command center just ahead. The towering structure loomed above us, a bastion of hope amid the chaos. But as we neared the entrance, a group of Zarjul soldiers appeared from around the corner, cutting us off. "Fire at will!" Breck shouted, taking charge. I raised my weapon, adrenaline surging as I joined the fight once more. The blaster fire erupted, the sounds blending into a cacophony of chaos. "Keep moving," I yelled, urging the civilians forward. "We can't stop now." The battle raged around us, the air thick with tension and desperation. Each shot felt like a plea for survival, a testament to our resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. Just as we thought we were making progress, the Zarjal reinforced their position, their soldiers pouring in from all sides. It was clear we couldn't hold out much longer. "Breck," I shouted over the din, "we need to fall back to the command center. It's our only chance." "Agreed," he yelled back, motioning for his fighters to retreat. We pushed toward the command center, fighting our way through the relentless waves of Zarjal soldiers. With every step, I could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on me. We were fighting for our lives, for the future of humanity. As we reached the entrance to the command center, I turned to check on the civilians. They were close behind, but I could see fear etched on their faces. "Everyone inside," I shouted, ushering them through the door. "Go, now." Tarek and I followed, closing the door behind us. Inside, the command center was chaotic, the sounds of alarms ringing in our ears. I could see the command staff working frantically, trying to coordinate a defense against the Zarjal. "Status report," I yelled, trying to be heard over the noise. "We're holding our ground, but the Zarjal are relentless," one of the officers replied, his face pale. "We've lost communication with several outposts." "We need to regroup our forces," I said, determination burning in my chest. "If we can take out their command structure, we might be able to turn the tide." "Agreed," Breck said, stepping up beside me. "We need to form a plan, and fast." As we strategized, I felt a glimmer of hope. We were alive, and we were fighting back. Humanity had a resilience that was unmatched, and I could feel it building within me. "Zaris, can you access the security feeds?" I asked, glancing at the console. "Accessing now," Zaris replied. "I am analyzing enemy movements." The screens flickered to life, showing the chaos outside. I could see the Zarjal forces regrouping, their numbers swelling. We needed to act quickly. "There," I pointed to a cluster of Zarjal soldiers. "If we can hit their command post, we might disrupt their coordination." Breck nodded, a fierce determination in his eyes. "Let's move. Tarek, gather a team. We'll go in hot." "On it," Tarek replied, his expression focused. As we prepared to launch our counteroffensive, I could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on me. We were fighting for our survival, and we wouldn't back down. With Zaris guiding our movements and our combined strength, we made our way out of the command center. The streets were still filled with chaos, but we were no longer afraid. We were a force to be reckoned with. As we advanced, the sound of blaster fire echoed around us, a reminder of the stakes at hand. We had come too far to turn back now. "Stick together," I shouted, leading our small group forward. The determination in our hearts surged, and I could feel the collective strength of humanity rising within us. As we approached the Zarjal command post, the tension was palpable. We were about to launch a decisive strike that could turn the tide of the battle. "Ready?" I asked, my voice steady. "Ready," Tarek replied, his eyes focused. "Let's finish this," I shouted, charging forward. With blaster fire erupting around us, we stormed the command post, ready to reclaim our destiny.